Just about every kid from a small town dreams of one day moving out of that small town to pursue their big, ambitious dreams. Dreams that wouldn't be possible to do in their small town. So they start dreaming of moving to the place that would help them achieve these dreams. The most amazing city in the world.
And that place is New York City. Okay, or some people may say LA. And as most of you guys know, I am born and raised here in New York, and it is my favorite place on earth. But for this video, I don't want to be completely biased, so I hit up my friend Shelby Church, who is a YouTuber out in Los Angeles, to help get her perspective on the situation.
Okay, so I'm actually in Seattle right now, but let's talk about living in LA. So starting with my apartment, I decided to live in just a one-off type of apartment that has a landlord rather than one of those big buildings. In LA, you'll find a ton of big buildings with really nice amenities, a pool and everything, and I've lived in those before, but I found it's really annoying anytime you have to go to your car. It takes at least 5 to 10 minutes just to, walk through the hallways and get to your car. Something about that, it never felt like a home. It felt like living in a hotel. So where I live now, I can just walk outside to my car, and the neighborhood is really nice. I can't really walk to any restaurants or anything though. That's the one thing I wish I did have. There are places in LA that you can do that, but for the most part, LA, everyone knows, not a super walkable place.
Now, that is probably my favorite thing about living in New York City. Like right now, we are just a few steps away from my apartment, and within this range, there is still so much that I can do. Living in New York City just makes you feel like you're living inside of an amusement park. It's just so exciting every single day. And if where you need to get is a bit too far to walk, then you can either rent a bike or even buy a skateboard. But owning a car here in New York City can be so expensive, since a parking spot alone goes up to $500 per month just for the rent for your car. Insane.
Now, as far as apartments in New York, it's definitely a different vibe. Shelby, who lives in Los Angeles in more of a house, isn't really a thing here in New York City. I'd say typically there are more quaint New York City styled apartments and then the luxury high rises. Myself, I personally live in a brownstone that to me is a quaint New York City apartment. It reminds me of the TV show Friends, their awesome apartment in the West Village. We have exposed brick and a relatively decent sized apartment compared to the rest of Manhattan. And overall, I would say that New York City compared to LA is a lot more expensive, and you don't get as good of a bang of a buck of a deal you don't get as good of a deal as you do in Los Angeles. $2,000 in New York City would get you something much smaller than what it would probably get you in Los Angeles. Since here in New York, you're most likely paying for the location, not necessarily the apartment.
People in LA drive very, very aggressively. If you can afford it, a Tesla is the best car to have in LA because you can put it on autopilot on the freeways, and it makes the traffic so much more bearable because you don't have to be focused, especially when you're in that stop and go traffic. That's just really annoying, where every 5 seconds you're just going a little bit forward. You just let the car do it for you, and you can kind of relax a little bit. You still have to pay attention. I know a lot of people hate the traffic and hate driving, and I will say it is something that will make you feel stuck and like you don't always want to go out and do things because it might take you, an hour to get there. But for the most part, I don't mind the driving too much because I actually like being in my car and blasting the music or listening to a podcast.
And if you do have a car, then you have to pay for the car insurance, gas, and even your expensive parking spot. But in my opinion, the most efficient way to get around New York City is this hot rod right here, a city bike. I'd say that having a city bike membership is the best thing that you can do while living here in New York City. I think every single New York City resident should have a city bike membership, since for the year it costs around $160, and within that you get unlimited use out of it. You don't have to worry about locking it up and having it stolen. Plus, it's just a really cool bike. You have your basket, you have your bell. City Bike. Subscribe now. Not sponsored, I promise. If you work for City Bike, hit my line.
And I must say, I really do love Los Angeles. I've spent multiple months there, and my business partner Manny lives out there, so I do go and visit and always enjoy my time out there. And especially when it is winter here in New York, it's nice to get an escape and go to Los Angeles where it's always sunny. I have friends out in Los Angeles who, when it rains, they are afraid to drive because it's so rare that it rains and they think that it's dangerous to drive, where here in New York City, that's just a normal day that you have to deal with.
One of my favorite things about LA is you can go to the beach whenever. Even in the winter, it's still decently nice out. Very rarely is it actually raining. You probably won't want to go in the water, but it is nice to be able to know that you can just go and see the ocean. And sometimes it is actually hot, even in December. New York at least has water, but I don't think you'd really want to swim in it. In LA, you definitely can swim in it.
So Gabe, Shelby thinks that the water here in New York City is not swimmable. Is she correct?
Bro, she's absolutely right. This water is disgusting.
Yeah, here in New York, you know, there's Coney Island, which has a beach, and that water is just barely swimmable. But if you do want nice water, the Hamptons, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours away, there is actually water that is comparable to LA. But yes, the water here in New York City, the Hudson River, East River, if you do what Gabe did, you may get a sixth toe.
Dude, don't tell him about my sixth toe.
I would say a major con of LA is just how sprawling it is. No matter where you live, you're still gonna be 10 miles away from something you need to get to, and it's just the way that the city is set up. There's just random neighborhoods everywhere, and so you have to drive through like everything to get anywhere. I don't know. Even if you live in the most central part of the city, I would say probably is West Hollywood, you're still 10 miles from Santa Monica, probably 8 miles from downtown LA. Like, you're never really that central.
Now, New York is the opposite of that, where everything is just at your fingertips. You can go see your friends, go to a meeting, go eat lunch, go to the skate park, go see your sister, all before 1 p.m. But now, if I were to have to say some cons of living in New York City, I'd say FOMO, that there's always something going on. There's always so many events and all of your friends, and they are all so close to you where it's hard to come up with an excuse not to go. Also, just about every apartment will most likely get mice. And the last thing I guess I would have to say is the weather. I do love getting all 4 seasons, but after Christmas, I feel like I'm just so over the winter and want it to be spring. So having it almost feel like summer all year round in Los Angeles does feel pretty tempting. But alright guys, that is going to be it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed this fun virtual collab with Shelby. Hopefully once COVID is over and we can travel again, we can do an in-person collaboration. And if you aren't already, definitely go check out her channel, which I will leave down below. And before we do end this video, I did want to say that with Fortune, we just released some new socks. They're actually tie-dye socks too. We got them in a blackish blue, a yellow, and then a red. So yeah, if you do want to support the channel, definitely is appreciated, and the link will be down below. But that is going to be it, and I will see you guys next Wednesday for another video.